Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Mr. Chicken here, or as some call me, Watch Mojo. I should really stop milking this video concept for views. But since the Batman releases soon, here's my rankings of every Batman movie. Now this is only going to include the live-action theatrically released films, which in total is 9. Although, let me quickly say, Lego Batman movie would go in between numbers 5 and 6, Mask of the Phantasm would go right after that, and The Killing Joke would go in between films 6 and 7. And obviously, because I don't want this video to be too long, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. And more importantly, this video is all just my own opinion, so let me know down in the comments below, what's your favourite Batman movie, what's your least favourite Batman movie, what do you agree with, what do you disagree with, just let me know. And without further ado, let's get into the video. In Dead to Last is Batman and Robin, and this should surprise absolutely no one because this film completely derailed the franchise. For starters, this film is incredibly cheesy and goofy to the point where nothing is taken seriously in the film, and it's not funny, it's just bad. We have the villains of this film in Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, one of the worst comic book castings out there, all of his ice puns. It's just dumb. We have Uma Thurman, who's playing it up to about 1000%. We have Bane, who is absolutely terrible in this. But of course, the biggest villain in this film is Joel Schumacher. All of the neon lights, the bat nipples, the stupid quips. Yet despite all that, it's still able to be really boring. There's this really convoluted storyline about Alfred dying and Barbara Gordon being Batgirl. Alicia Silverstone is terrible in this. The relationship between Batman and Robin and eventually Batgirl is also awful in this. The plot's overly convoluted, there's too much stuff going on and I can't take any of it seriously. Even George Clooney hates the film. And I can smell some controversy brewing because in second last place I have Batman v Superman. Now, you could argue that this film isn't really a Batman film, it's more crossover, but I mean it has Batman in the title of it, I don't know what you want from me. But it's just not brilliant as a Batman movie, which is weird to say because he's also the best thing about this film. But because of this crossover we can't really say it's a Batman film either. We have Ben Affleck, who actually gives a really good performance in this film, but unfortunately, they make the strange creative choice to turn him into a serial killer. We have Lex Luthor's ridiculously drawn-out plan that makes next to no sense, Lois Lane doing absolutely nothing, a lot of really stupid violence that doesn't end up leading anywhere, and the motivations for these two characters to actually fight each other, from the viewpoint of Batman himself, it makes sense. In the case of Superman, it doesn't make any sense. And then of course we have the third act where Wonder Woman appears out of nowhere, they fight at the cave troll from Lord of the Rings, and I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. How Zack Snyder managed to turn a film called Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice into a film that's about as interesting as Batman and Robin absolutely bewilders me. Next up in third last we have Batman Forever, which is really just a prelude to warning us about what Batman and Robin would be, because basically this is the beginning of it becoming Batman and Robin. We've got the neon lights and the nipples, but they're not as prominent here, which is a good thing. Nonetheless, you can see a change to this film becoming far more childish, in particular with the villains, where you have Jim Carrey's Riddler, who I actually quite like. The same cannot be said for Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face, who honestly rivals Arnold Schwarzenegger for the worst Batman villain in film. Val Kilmer is awful, he has absolutely no charisma in the role. Their version of Robin doesn't make any sense. I can't take a lot of this film seriously. But worse than that, I know I accused Batman v Superman and Batman and Robin of being boring, but this one really is the most boring Batman film out there. There's just so much wasted time in this film. Like, what was the point of that Nicole Kidman relationship? It sucked, like most of this film. Next up we have Batman 66, and honestly this film's actually kind of a fun watch to see how far superhero films have gone. I love the idea of watching Batman 66 followed by The Dark Knight back to back. That just gives me funny visions, but yeah, it's a clear product of its time. It's pretty much just a pantomime at feature length. But saying that, it's actually kind of funny in it. It has a certain charm to it that's quite hard to sort of replicate. I think it's the fact that it knows how goofy it's being. Plus, this film's really cheap. There just wasn't a big standard for superhero movies at this time. All the performances of the villains are suitably camp, but they're pretty good as they are. And then there's Adam West, who's genuinely good as Bruce Wayne in this film. Now, obviously, the story's a bit thin. Obviously, this film is going to be very comic-y. But it's really the most quintessential version of what Batman was seen as at the time. So I kind of have a fondness for this film, but I can also accept that, you know, it isn't the best, and it certainly has not aged well. And at the exact middle of the list, next we have the most underrated Batman film out there, Batman Returns, because no one really talks about this film. And look, no, it's not as good as its predecessor, but I still really like this movie. Is it too adult at points? Yeah, but I actually kind of like the gothic vision that this all goes for. I like the direction of this film, and I like a lot of the creative choices that are made to make this just a really kooky, weird story. All three of the main performances are really good in this. Michael Keaton, I feel like, has a really good time to shine. Michelle Pfeiffer is fantastic as Catwoman, and Danny DeVito is fantastic as the Penguin. Christopher Walken, nah, I'm not interested, sorry. And yeah, this film isn't very accurate to the comics, and yes, it's very excessive in terms of some of its violence, but in terms of capturing a vision, it's still able to stick with what the core source material feels like, while also being able to find this distinct voice. So yeah, there's a good vision here, there's some good acting. I actually quite like the main storyline behind this. Yes, there are problems with it, but regardless, I like Batman Returns. At number 4 we have Batman Begins, and this is a really important film for the franchise because this sort of took superhero movies in general back to seriousness, and it's done through several really good things. For starters, Christopher Nolan's direction. He has a really good vision for this. In particular, some of the action sequences are very well directed. We have a lot of really good performances in this film, in particular Christian Bale, who I think does a really good job here. Michael Caine, who's really good in the film. Cillian Murphy, who most people forget in this, and you know what, I don't have anything to say about Katie Holmes. The music by Hans Zimmer is fantastic in this. I love the gritty direction it goes in that makes Gotham feel a lot bigger, a lot more lived in. I like the choice to go through an origin story. I feel like it grounds the character back in here. It's very well paced, although it does admittedly fall apart in the third act, where the plot gets a little bit too silly for me. But regardless, it has a really good vision, it has a really good understanding of its characters, and I love this telling of the origin story. At number 3, yet another controversial choice, I'm going for The Dark Knight Rises. Because this is a film that really tried its best to break Batman, and people say he's not in the film that much, and that's because it's really more Bruce Wayne's film than it is a Batman film. But I kinda like that approach to it. As well as Christian Bale being really good in the film, we have Michael Caine, who gives probably his best performance in the trilogy, Gary Oldman, who is really good in this film, and Tom Hardy, who makes such an impression as Bane. And basically what we see here is Gotham falling apart, and these sequences are handled so well. They've got great camera work, great cinematography, fantastic music once again, some really good editing, really good pacing. Honestly, this film is just epic. I feel like they could have shortened this film by about 15 minutes by getting rid of the Talia al Ghul reveal. I wasn't a huge fan of that one. But other than that, this film's actually remarkably good. The pacing aside from that is really good. The direction's all fantastic. These action sequences are phenomenal. Anne Hathaway is surprisingly good as Catwoman. And ultimately, we're just given a really satisfying finale to the Dark Knight trilogy. At number 2, we have Batman 89, and this really understood what kind of tone you need to go for when adapting this kind of a comic book. And credit absolutely goes to Tim Burton for the way that he visualized a lot of this stuff. A lot of the effects are really good here. A lot of the performances are fantastic. Michael Keaton's really good in the role. Jack Nicholson is fantastic as the Joker in this. Kim Basinger screams a lot. But this has got like a really strange gothic charm to it that's really hard to replicate, where it takes itself very dark and very seriously, yet it's also able to be surprisingly campy as well. It's got this really gothic atmosphere, and in terms of all the cinematography and the camera work, it's all really well done here. We got a fun story, some really fun music here, and ultimately it's just a faithful adaptation of the comics. They made Batman cool, and after seeing Batman 66, you can see it was quite a challenge at the time. One challenge that Tim Burton succeeded at nonetheless, and deserves credit for. He just got the tone of this film right, was able to make Batman cool and make a really well-paced, fun story that's able to take itself seriously too. And okay, yeah, I think we all saw this coming. Number 1, The Dark Knight. And this is the best superhero film ever made, because it basically isn't a film about superheroes, it's a crime drama. And that tone works really well for the film. The story of this is so unpredictable and filled with twists that the pacing is absolutely fantastic. It's somewhat breakneck while still giving us appropriate amounts of times for all of our characters. Christian Bale's really good in this once again, Michael Caine's really good in this once again, Gary Oldman gives a fantastic performance, Aaron Eckhart is often overlooked for his amazing performance of Harvey Dent / Two-Face, and that transformation was done very well. And of course, one of the greatest performances in a comic book movie of all time in Heath Ledger's Joker was in this film in an unforgettable performance. Really what this film is about is it's testing Batman's limits and testing Bruce Wayne's as well. The themes that run through this film are really exciting. All of the action sequences are really well shot. The camera work is so much better than it was in Batman Begins. Once again, we have Hans Zimmer's fantastic score. We have a remarkably witty script with some really good dialogue here. And ultimately, Christopher Nolan understood the assignment. He knew what kind of film he needed to make, and that vision works fantastically in this film. It's got an unpredictable story, it has so many iconic moments in it, and it's just a thrill to watch. Which is why The Dark Knight is not only the best Batman film, but the best comic book film ever made. But that's all my own opinion, so let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts on this movie and some of the other movies I mentioned in this list are. Let me know your lists down below, because this is the end of the video. Thank you so much guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, like and comment. Check out my Twitter at MrChickenMovies. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.